This podcast is part 2. It's so hard to find good people. I'd say the number one takeaway from the first one was Todd, where you suggested changing the language. And instead
Don't
of,
give me too much credit. I
that
probably
was your
stole that
that was
from
your one
somewhere.
little, that was the bit I was going to give you credit for. So,
Okay, well, thanks.
and you're like, instead of us saying it's so hard to find good people, let's recognize that we do have good people. We all have good people. Instead, it's hard to find skilled people. And we touched base last podcast on when you do say it's hard to find good people, what are you saying to your existing people? So, but beyond that, I'd like to start off and share some feedback we actually had from an employee that commented on our last podcast. And I think this is going to start some great conversation. This is from a gentleman named Trevor, which is an employee of a body shop. And the question he had relating to keeping good employees. I started my career at Concourse Collision, and I've been moving from shop to shop ever since, seeking growth and a positive culture. While I've learned a lot, I am getting tired of moving around. I want to focus on driving change within my current company, as I see significant potential for growth and improvement here. As an employee, what's the best way to approach leadership to inspire change in the workplace? Yeah, who doesn't want to hire
I was
that
just
guy?
gonna say, I'll
Totally.
just give him
Hey,
my
do
card.
you want to make one more move?
Yeah. Sad to say it, I
Yeah.
would tell you that if we can't help him answer that question, he's gonna want to make another move. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
that's a really well articulated question. Actually, it's really good.
it is. I guess we can just try to think of it in our own in our own situations, right? What would we do if we had an employee that was, I guess, bursting at the seams, ready to make some big changes? I think, he does need buy-in from leadership, obviously, because that's just, he's going to be swimming upstream otherwise. But, you know, I don't think I would need to be convinced very hard to go down that road and at least get on the same page as to what the end state looks like, right? Because I guess that's the first thing, right? His end state might not be what the leadership at that particular organization has in mind as well. So I think if you can get agreement on that, which might mean some concessions or maybe some, concessions not the right word, but some changes in expectations from both sides, and then start building towards it. I think that's the first step, in my opinion.
I got to agree with you wholeheartedly there, Norm. It's nice to have an employee that wants to make those steps and help you improve your shop, but you have to be aligned. We've ran through this. We've had some, those absolutely amazing technicians that are just all-star repairers, and they want the shop to be what they think we want. And then when you get to the nitty-gritty and talk to them and see where the values align and how the timeline may work, I think that's where you start to see sometimes some real differentiation in what needs to happen to get there. So definitely getting aligned with leadership and being clear on when are we doing this, how are we doing this, and who are we involving to get our shop to where we want it to be is a big step. Otherwise, it could just lead to more frustration and leaving again to try to find that culture. You're chasing this awesome culture, but what are you as an employee as well doing to help facilitate that and to make it easier for everybody else in the shop? Because you want them to come with you. You can't just say, hey, we're doing this, and one employee does it and the rest aren't there. It takes a lot of alignment throughout the whole organization to make that happen. So there's the onus on everybody, but getting together, clear plan, and going from there is paramount to make it happen.
Really interesting. He doesn't elaborate on what he's asking for when he says he's seeking growth. So that's an interesting thing, and I don't know if that's a career trajectory change that he's looking for. If he's a collision tech, it doesn't really elaborate on those kind of things. As he gets more skilled and more of a craftsman over time, think that is it like, am I looking for growth within the company or what? Obviously, the positive culture. I think culture comes down to what you feed, and I think with with a team, if the team feeds off of negativity, unless you've got someone within your team that's overpowering that negativity with positivity, you're never going to have a positive culture. I think that the positive will win every time, but it has to be stronger, or at least equal. I don't think people want to be negative naturally. I think right, yeah. I can't read it; it's backwards. But
Is it
Well,
backwards?
it's like
You know how
me.
long it took me to write that so it
oh, yeah,
wasn't
it's
backwards?
it's backwards. But I love that. It's like an ambulance in your rear view, right? You gotta like
It's not backwards in my camera.
it is in
It is in
ours.
ours.
It took me like 5 minutes to write it backwards.
Yeah.
I'm gonna send
Well,
you
you
a
did a
picture.
great job. You should have done it
Thank you.
left-handed and backwards. Anyways,
Palms. That's what it says. Most people are good.
yeah, most people are good, and I think that it's easy for a bad orange to spoil a box, right? You can. It's like, what are we tolerating? And if you've got negativity around you and you're looking for a positive culture, it's not necessarily that you need to go look for that somewhere else. Like, I think you can grow it and make it, and I think you can do it from within. I don't think that a positive culture needs to purely come from the top. I think that it comes from within. It's not like, hey, I go to work and I act this way because my boss tells me to. It's like I go to work and I act this way because this is like who I want to be. And then you find more people that are like, I go to work and hey, I want to be like that too. And you know what? That's what creates the culture.
And I think what I heard you say from the last podcast we talked about strongest energy is yeah, strongest energy will win. You said in order for it to be a positive environment, it has to be a stronger positive energy. But is that what's happening? Do we have positive work environments, or are we? I mean, most people are good. We're doing our best. We show up each day, but just can't
I
seem to
think
get it.
well like
It's,
I think the collision industry is really interesting because like generally, you could say that, like, I don't know, if you can compare to a different industry like tech, where they've got like, oh, they've got lounges, and I don't even know if people work at tech companies, right? But that positivity doesn't actually create fulfillment in a lot of people, especially like people on the ground. And I actually think that facing adversity together in a positive mindset actually like builds the team. But I think in the collision industry, the and you know, if it comes from leadership or whatever, but it's that we're victims, everything's against us, all the odds are stacked against us, and that negativity, instead of like let's overcome the challenge together, let's like work on these outside forces as a team, build on positivity. The negativity of being like, oh, you know, whatever, it just flows through the organization, whether it's a insurance company denied this or customer can't afford that or whatever, right? It's always like victim, victim, victim. We missed that. I just think we could do it different.
and I think to answer your question earlier, trying to understand what back to Trevor's question he was asking is he's alluded to he did have an environment that he enjoyed working in. And since making a change, he just wants some of that back. There could be some career development stuff in there, which we talked about last podcast as well. But what I'm here, I'm asking him is how do I, if I could go off the premise that most people are good, including the owner of this company, how does he help that owner connect with there is a better way? You know, and how cool is that if it's coming from your
It's
employees
very cool.
to say, hey, like we got a good thing going, but there could be better ways. I've seen it, or I've heard of it, I know it. You know, I don't want to leave. I don't, right? It's okay to talk about it. I just don't want to. Right? There's something here. Values are being met, but there's a better way. So the fact that he's comfortable enough sharing this request and allowing us to talk about it is pretty cool. You know, I reached out to him and said, are you okay if I holler at this? He's like, please do. Whatever
Yeah,
you guys are doing,
there's
it's awesome. It's getting owners to talk, right? So, and let's just say switching gears from just Trevor's company to all shops, what of that negativity? And here's an example. We have people that call us in to help them, and they're like, well, you guys don't understand. My people are good, but they can't make it in always on time. They have to drop their kid off at daycare. So they're coming in at 9:15, but you want us to have morning huddles in order to start the day off, and they're not making those. That's, I guess, one side of the pendulum. The other one is I have people that just are not buying into what we're doing. They're standing off in the back corner while we're having our morning huddle, even when we're trying to do a morning huddle. Where have you guys found yourselves at any part of your journey in implementing lean continuous improvement? And where are you now, if you don't mind just being honest?
Yeah, I got something to share along those lines, it's back to the comment that Todd made about positive attitudes in the team, and then touching on what you're saying about, some people can't make it at this time, some people can't make it at that time. A guy like Trevor comes up to me and says, "Hey Norm, I want to take the lead. I want to do this. I want to do that." But then says, one of the first things I do is I'd get rid of Jim. Jim can never show up on time. And Tommy, he has, he takes long lunch breaks. And I've really had to set people back when we're having those conversations, because at the end of the day, when you're playing hockey, you need 5 players on the ice. And they're not all going to be Connor McDavid. They're not all going to be, superstars. And you need someone there. And our industry isn't exactly overflowing with people trying to get into it. I think it's certainly heading a little more in that direction, but I think we need to have realistic expectations with today's workforce, and people who are stepping up like Trevor. And I'm not accusing Trevor of this, because he totally might be out of touch here by me saying this, but you can't come with a solution that involves not having your team with you. And it has to come with the realization that certain team
100%.
members are going to bring different things to the table, and that's what makes a team great, right? One person's good at this, the other person's good at that. And that comes with accepting some of the negativity that comes with it to a certain degree, right? If Tommy's not there at 8 o'clock sharp every morning, but yet Tommy works later than everybody at night, you're gonna have to make some concessions and accept some of that, right? That he's not gonna be a morning person. Yes, that's gonna throw other things off in your day, but how how exact do you want to be with your expectation, and how much are you willing to hold people to that if it means potentially losing people because they can't be there exactly at 8 o'clock every morning?
So just so we're clear, Norm,
Interesting.
how are you handling that? Not what I heard you say is make it work, but I think what I heard you say is have the conversation.
Exactly. And I think part of that conversation is part of the broader conversation is having that line of communication with all of your employees. So something that we do here is semi-annual reviews, and it does come up from time to time where people are concerned with, certain things that are happening in the shop that don't meet their standard. But when we step back and look at the big picture and look at the positives that we're gaining, you know, offsetting those, the conversation usually turns to, yeah, you know what, that's a good point. Net result is positive. Yeah, so this is happening, that's happening, but it's good. I'm not saying be complacent and don't hold people accountable, but you're right. There's certain situations in their lives that are going to cause ripples through the shop. If you can't drop your kid off before a certain time at daycare, you just can't do it. And so you're gonna have to make those concessions. But what I find is most of the time is other people in the organization don't understand the actual reason why the other person's not there on time. And when you explain that to them, it's kind of like, oh, I
Yeah.
thought he was just sleeping in every morning, but you're saying that there's
Yeah, yeah. I thought he was lazy. Yeah, yeah. It's like,
Are
no,
you
you
talking
actually
about
just don't understand.
employee, or are you talking about the shop owner?
well,
It could be both.
it could be both, right? And the
Yeah.
communication piece is, I mean, it's overarching on everything we're talking about right now, because none of it works if you don't if everybody doesn't have a clear understanding of what's going on and why certain things are happening. Because otherwise, it turns into, well, Joe gets to show up at 10 o'clock every morning, and well, if he gets to do that, then why don't I get to do that, right? So it's complicated.
Well, and you kind of bring up a good point there too, as well. Like we want our people to understand why John gets that late morning. Well, what's wrong with the other employees going, "Hey, John, I notice you're not here every day at 8 o'clock. Well, what's the purpose in that?" Not like trying to put him down, but like literally asking him, "Hey, why is this happening?" He's like, "Well, I value my kids, man, and I'm a single dad, and I got to get them to school. That's the most important thing in my life every single day." And once that is done, I am fully committed to now working for the shop because my responsibilities have been taken care of. What a beautiful thing that would be, you know? But that puts the onus on the employee, right? You want to make things
100%.
better. You ask those 100% positive questions instead of going to the boss and saying, "Yeah, John's never here." Like, like you can look at the team element as well too, and like, who likes Brad Marchand here?
I don't
Anybody?
even know who that is.
If you're a Bruins
Mm,
fan, you love him, right?
yeah. Okay,
I have
well,
no
no,
idea. Is he a
no one
hockey player or
knows.
something?
Yeah, no, I
He is
know.
the most annoying hockey player in the NHL. He's very
Okay.
talented, but he's a little prick. Like nobody really likes him. But ask any team if they want Brad Marchand on them when they're doing a cup run, and it's going to be 100% yes. He's fully committed to the cause, and he's going to annoy other people, but he's doing it for the team. And sometimes you don't have to always like your teammate, but you have to love what they bring to allow you to excel as well too.
Very well said.
There are.
Most people are good. Most people do care. Culture is what I heard you both say there. I think Todd, you started it off, but Norm and Joel, you're like, as long as it fits in the culture and it's a culture that is there to win, right? Because no one wants to, join a team that's always losing either.
Losing team. Yeah.
I've seen it. I've seen a good culture ultimately see to a person who doesn't have a good attitude either conform or leave. And that's a real thing that happens all around us. What do you do with the people who have checked out but don't leave?
That's a good question.
Ideally, or in the real world?
Yes.
Ideally, you get rid of them after a real conversation. But in the real world, we do have shortages, and depending on what your market is, you may have to make a few concessions in regard to that. But then again, as owners, we also get in our own way with that and believing that that's the only person there. Recently, we've hired 2 new people that aren't really have a big history in auto body in any shape, way, or form. They've worked in dealerships and they've worked in offices, and we've hired them to become estimators. And they're good people. They care and they're working hard. The transformation in 2 weeks in our office has been ridiculous. Super happy with the results so far. But, we were afraid that because they didn't have auto body experience or even dealing with insurance companies from a auto body perspective, they weren't going to have that history or that understanding of pain and suffering that we need to strive. Well, it's all bullshit. They're good people. They know how to work and they want to do the job, and they're gonna learn, and they're doing it. I think earlier Norm was talking about something, and it almost brought me to this thought that as auto body people, we have this generational trauma that's been handed down to us with these stories of insurance companies and bad
Totally true.
employees and their stories, right? Like, so maybe we need to get rid of our generational trauma, and this platform is our opportunity to speak about it with the masses. Kind of
Great
out
little,
there,
great
but
little invite there, Joel, to ask the listeners to plug in their comment.
Yeah, totally. What
Yeah.
trauma did you inherit, but you didn't actually experience directly? I mean, I think that there's something there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's hard to differentiate what we actually dealt with ourselves and what stories have been passed down from either our
Yeah.
parents or our partners or our other estimators and staff. Yeah.
I think I inherited some along the way for sure.
I'm definitely going to recap as we go here at the end because there's some massive nuggets that you guys are dropping. Joel, I guess to segue, you just mentioned you brought 2 new people from outside the industry.
Hmm.
I wish I'd like to believe that's normal. My journey thus far over even the past 10 years is it's not. It was for us, but that came from desperation. Being in
Hmm.
Alberta and competing with oil was my last memory of it. But before we go there, because I think it's the result of it, it's due to a lack of skilled people. Who's to blame? Because from what I understand, everyone's saying we're short on skilled people. Who's to blame for that? I want to know. I want to know who's at fault.
A lot.
Yeah, do you want like every shop is responsible for that.
Well,
Nobody
you
wants to train anybody. It's too
okay?
expensive. It's too difficult. Takes too much time. Like that's just And we've been guilty of, a skilled person drops a resume and you hire them way too quick. It's just like, no, but they've never worked out well. So I think the industry, just generally speaking, I mean, we all know shops that wouldn't hire an apprentice to save their lives, but man, as soon as that person's ticketed, they're headhunting.
Hmm.
Yeah, I'm in a little bit of a different situation being in a small rural town. So if you're calling it putting in the work, then I guess we're putting in the work. It's just become the way things are here.
It's part of what you
We
do.
have to grow our own. And one of my longest standing employees started with me, I think, a year after I bought the shop, and he was in grade 11, and he's still here today. So
Love that.
we've grown a lot of our own here. We've had, my one tech came from, he worked at the co-op before in a customer service role. My other tech was kind of in a construction type job. You're, very good hands-on guy. But these were all young people that we've had to train from the get-go. I've only had, I believe, 2 ticketed journeymen come here and be able to stay here. The rest we've all grown, and we've got 5 or 6 here now in different roles. So my estimators kind of gotten out of that.
But it let's like blue sky. Imagine that was actually just how things are done. Like, generally speaking, across the provinces, across the cities, imagine that we would not have this problem. Like, we would not be short on people. But there's a combination of, I think that's not the norm. Love that play on. That's not the norm. And it's also, it's like, how hard are you as an employer? How hard are you working to be a great employer, right? How, like, obviously, Norm, you're doing a great job of that because you've got people sticking around really long term. And some people might argue, well, you're in a small town, there's nowhere to go. Yeah, there totally
There
is. Maybe
totally
not in a
is.
collision
Yeah.
center, but there's somewhere to go. Like, let's be honest. So I think that the onus, you can't blame, and you can't keep being a victim. It's like, how many people have you trained? If you're not training, you know, is it 10 to 20% of your staff are in training roles all the time? Like, you're not going to survive.
And I think one of the offshoots of that is that when you're putting in that type of work to train someone and be on that journey with them through their apprenticeship, you're going to work harder to keep them. It's not going to be an easy come, easy go scenario where it's a revolving door and it's like, this guy showed up. Nah, I don't like him. Next. You start to really put in the extra work because you're almost, at one point you feel like you're pot committed, right? It's like, man, I've put in a lot of time and effort in this person. And that can be good or bad. I've made that mistake in the past where I've held on to people for too long because I felt like, wow, I've just invested way too much time in this person to give up at this point, right? And that's something that you're going to need to adapt to and grow into as a shop owner or as a manager, right? You're going to need to be able to recognize it, can I keep working with this person? Or am I able to keep growing with
Mhm.
them? Or do we need to part ways? But I think having to put in that work is certainly going to make you search a little harder and work a little harder before you decide to part ways with that person.
And I'll share some of my own generational trauma, you called it, Joel. That was deep. Guys, like, I don't know, 20 years ago, if I'm aging myself, 30 years ago, we were told, we went to the meetings, we went to the CCIFs, this declining industry, we're losing people. And I mean, I have Chat GPT because I'm super smart, and it says right here from 2016 to 2021, the decrease in tradespeople ages 65 and older decreased by 11.8%. And those entering ages anywhere from 15 to 24 decreased by 12.2. So mechanical repair technology is down 7.8, whereas construction actually held strong. So, I mean, analyze all you want, do your research. The fact is, we have declining tradespeople because people are retiring and we're not bringing young people in. Unless you guys want to correct me, we can move on to what the hell are we going to do about
Well,
this?
I don't think I'm in a position to fact check you, Mr. AI, there, but I think we could just move forward with that presumption.
You had said bringing young people in. So who's to blame? Let's just own it. Stop being a victim. Quoting Mr. Duchesne there, is what are you doing about it?
Yeah.
right? What are you guys doing about it? What have you heard going on, or what do we need to do more of out there? Which I'm hearing is bringing young people in, but I'd also like to ask if you guys are truly utilizing people going out. And the history I'd like to share is a gentleman that worked for us named Keith. Quite frustrated in his later days that he's seeing a lot of his, I guess, colleagues, friends, moving on, and even having like great retirement packages, RSPs, and he's been slamming out his years in the trade, frustrated, not sure what to do. At age 65, if he's going to retire and have an income. But what I was grateful for was being part of a company that said, "Hey, you got a head full of knowledge, man, and your body's worn out. What do we do if we could? What do we do to actually reframe what we have you do here?" And we ended up doing that. We took our older technicians and put less physical requirements on their output, call it their efficiency, lowered their efficiency, but had them work with younger people to bring two or three of the other people's efficiency up. Did it require some training to the older generation on how to work with younger kids? Absolutely. Because that can be frustrating in itself, generations understanding each other, right? But it worked. It worked. It allowed us to pay people for what they know, and actually, in my experience, actually brought more joy. The guy was actually excited to come to work again because he got to work with people and see them learn and grow. So that was my example, but I'm curious if you guys can share anything similar, or if there's more need for that.
I think
Yeah,
there's more need for that in different
agree.
ways too. I've been thinking a lot lately, and just the different stages of life that we go through, and then you watch our parents go through their retirement ages, and there's different stages to that too. When they first retire, they still got their energy, they still have their health. Then as they get older, that retirement changes. It's more sedentary. I look at myself, when I first started in the auto body industry, I was a hard worker, working long hours. That no longer became pleasurable to me. Then I became more of an 8 to 5 office person. Now I'm more of a, 7 days a
You're sitting in
week, whatever
Arizona,
hours in Arizona. But
just
yeah,
waiting for the moment to bring that up.
Absolutely.
awesome. I've done a lot of hard work to deserve to come here and do a podcast from Arizona. But there's different stages in our life that are different. And I think when people look at their career, they say, okay, I'm going to be an auto body technician, and that's what it is. But no, within those 20, 30 years of being an auto body technician, you're going to have different roles, and you're going to view life slightly differently. It's a constant progression and change. And I think people need to realize that if you're looking from day one to retirement and all you see is one path, you're on the wrong side of that path, because it's not going to be linear like that in any shape, way, or form. So we got to manage our expectations and understand that there is going to be change in our roles, maybe 4, maybe 5, maybe 10 times through our working career. And what does that look like? And how does that change our perspective? A little ramble, but
No,
kind of believe in it.
no, that's good. Like one of the things I added to our agenda for these semi-annual meetings with my technicians one-on-one is, where do you see yourself in 5 years? And I can't tell you how many great conversations we've had surrounding that. And some of them had no idea. So it forced them to start thinking down the road. Some of them had a very precise idea. And the interesting thing is, sometimes as we got to talk about it, their thoughts changed along the way, and I was taken back by that, because had I not had that conversation with them, they would have went on the next 5 years thinking that same exact thing, and they would have got off to the jumping off point and maybe found out that that wasn't what they imagined it would be. But by having those conversations ahead of time, we were able to kind of get those misconceptions out of the way, talk it through, and really start to now build on what that future looks like. From an employer standpoint, it's great, because now I can start doing some planning into the future. There's some roles that are going to be in our business in 5 years that may not exist today. That's how quickly the landscape's evolving. So being able to start to go down that road with the understanding of where some of your staff wants to end up in their journey is super good. It allows you to do some great things. And there's some technicians that have told me flat out, in 5 years, I'm going to still be fixing cars because I want to still be fixing cars. And that's good to know as well, because someone still needs to fix the cars, right? So I guess my rambling is it's communication again, just having that communication.
Awesome. Let's assume that that's something somebody in an aging level in their career would like to do. My personal experience is they do. I'm not at all advocating that you're now going to make your top skilled guy a floor manager. Please don't do that. Have the conversation like you said there, Norm, is
It won't
talk
work
with
out
your
well.
talk with your key talk with your key people, talk with the people that have the experience and say, look, what does your 5 years look like? And what can we do as a company to embrace it? So then that brings me to my next question is what has to be in place in order to support your workforce to do that? I.e., what processes, systems do you have in place to help your people make that transition?
I think number one is you can't fear it as an owner or the leader of the company. You can't sit there in fear of imminent change. Your team, I don't know if you've ever sat down with someone and they're like, yeah, I don't want to be doing this in 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. And you can almost feel the feeling that comes over an owner going, oh man, like I'm going to lose this person. And I think it's the realization. It's no different than like doing a will. Is like doing a will is a really interesting exercise where you're like, I'm just actually planning to be dead. That's a weird thing to do. But I think as an owner, I think your perspective on that, if you aren't helping your team succeed and reach their goals, you will never truly achieve success on your own. Like this in I don't know if that's universal, but I feel like in our industry, because that's what I can speak to, is that owners are rarely a success when none of their team is succeeding. That is you're just not going to get it. So
Yeah.
that's the first thing I think you need to do is just face the fact that it's a little bit scary as an owner actually having that conversation like Norm said, where you actually like where are you looking to be in 5 years? And the answer to that might actually scare you. And I think you just need to be comfortable with that and you need to just know that your intentions are to help them achieve their own success.
Well said.
Hmm.
Yeah, we're actually going through something kind of like that where we've got a shop manager that's been here for almost 15 years, and we've been having these "Where are you in 5 years?" conversations for the last 5 years, and so we're counting down the years. And I've known it's coming. He knows it's coming. The rest of the staff knows that it's coming one day, and it's not an insult to anybody who's currently working for us to say that those are going to be some big shoes to fill. Everybody knows it. He's got a very unique skill set, very unique background that allows him to excel at his job. So you're right, Todd. You can't just put it off and just say, well, I'll deal with it later. So I think to answer Lenny's question, I think that, bringing someone, whether it's from within your organization or outside your organization, to work alongside that person and do in an apprenticeship type role, because that deadline is coming, right? So what's stopping you from hiring someone a year, 6 months, 3 months, whatever you think the time is, to work next to that person? I mean, yeah, it's one of those things that's not going to pencil out on your admin staff, per dollar calculations, but sometimes the right thing to do is the hardest thing to do, and you just got to do it. And you want to line yourself up for success. You want to set yourself up for success. And if you have someone who's being successful in the position, to me it makes sense to have them working with the person who's going to be taking over, to kind of pave that road and have it be as smooth as possible.
Love it. Just sharing for those watching, maybe for those listening, what we're all looking at is what's known as a career map. And perhaps, Norm, that'll back up what you just said is we have a group of people that have knowledge in our trade, whether outside or inside of our own shop. We as owners know what it took. Most of us did work in the trade to some degree
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
and or have somebody we can lean on. But would a career track not make sense for every shop that is struggling to find skilled people? And then perhaps as you engage the either aging or exiting generation to now work with you and confirm that indeed internally, if it's going to happen, we go first. But career tracks does not seem like a common conversation in this trade, not from what I'm hearing.
No, it's not at all. We've talked about it a little bit internally. It's like how do you actually lay out a bit of a plan? Like this is good. I mean, I haven't read every little thing, and it might be different for every organization, but I mean, how many shops, including my own, if you're to say, hey, can you like send me your apprenticeship training plan for say a 4 year, 5 year, whatever it is for say a collision tech? How many shops out there are like, right? Like, well, he pushes the broom for 6 months and then takes out the garbage for 6 months, and then actually we get him doing small repairs with literally no training. And it's because that happens.
Uh,
Yeah. Right? Like, I mean, it happens. It happens everywhere. It happens in our shops. It's like, oh, people they get derailed, and you can never actually go back and say, hey, look, like this is where you should be. Why we're having a meaningful conversation. Like this is where you should be. Like, do you feel confident that you're actually there? You've learned all these things. So yeah, it's can't rely on the schools to do all the work for you.
Right. Any other comments on career tracks? Yeah, that's really pretty, but doesn't work.
No,
Or what does it
I
take?
will unfortunately have to back you on this one. I can't, create a spicy short by disagreeing with you on this one because I actually stole this from you flat out when you did some work with us a few years ago, and it's worked great, and I've adapted it to our process and to our people. And one of the things that I think it's this document has served me the best in the best way it served me is that with young people, where we'll commonly hear that young people have an unrealistic expectation of how quickly they're going to climb that ladder, so to speak, in an organization. And so I've sat down with young technicians who are in an apprentice role. Some of them are high school students who are only with us for 3-4 months at a time. And at the end of that little apprenticeship, high school apprenticeship, I'll sit down with them and say, hey, if they're good, if they suck, I mean, I'm not even bothering with any of this, right? So, but if they're good, I sit down with them and say, look, if you're interested, this is how your journey at St. Cloud Auto Body could look like. And it goes through something very similar to this, and it also includes expected pay in today's dollars, which obviously are going to change as they go. And it's really good because some of them have said, no, you know what, that's too slow for me. I'm going to go do something else. Well, at least we've weeded that out ahead of time instead of going through that painful process in 2 years from now where we've now invested time in them. And for others, they've gone back home and thought about it and said, you know what, nobody's actually, I have this idea in my head, but nobody's actually ever laid it out for me. And now in their journey to find a career, this becomes their new standard. When they walk into somewhere, they want to see this laid out for them. And unavoidably, sometimes they end up coming back saying, you know what, Norm, as much as I want to climb that ladder, nobody's been able to lay it out for me just like you have. And now that I understand it, I'm in. I want to do it.
I'm glad you brought up the expectation of wage. You notice that this column, second from the top, is blank. That's created better conversation than us filling it out. I mean, go ahead and talk to your fellow shop owners and ask what they're paying people. Better yet, sit down with your people and say, look, here's what's realistic and here's where we can climb to. I mean, just because we get to, March 2027, we may or may not hit that wage, but here's what you can expect because by you doing these skills is going to allow our shop to be more profitable, which means you'll be making more profit. So thanks for stealing it, Norm, and I hope everyone else does too.
Absolutely.
Because it's just another little piece to put out there that's going to help this industry get past that story that, it's so hard to find good people. So,
Yeah, I like that.
I think you said something about young people, maybe not all fitting this trade. I can't remember exactly what you said there, Norm. Finding out whether they're a fit.
Yeah. Like doing that ahead of time before we really go down that road.
Yeah, I'm going to share one more thing that we used to, if I could use the word weed through, but really qualify people for the trade. And I don't have the exact layout here, but happy to share if anyone wants to ask for it. We had 3 entry level points in our industry because we had to search a different barrel. That was 2006. Oil hit the max. We were booked beyond uh, months for repair, and we needed people. We couldn't keep somebody in the wash bay for $20 an hour or less. But we also couldn't find any skilled people in the trade. We had to figure it out. And so you could start as a entry level CSR. So those are the people we targeted that wanted to get into things like medical industry or wanted some admin experience. It was a great place to start. Another place was in parts, which then kind of naturally led to maybe a role in repair planning and or estimating.
Mm-hmm.
And then finally production. We started everyone through our wash bay, and even our highly skilled, newly hired, fully red sealed tech
I love
spent at
that.
least a day in the wash bay understanding how we wash cars. And this one work practice I'm sharing right now was what we taught all of our brand new people right off of the street, if you will, what was expected. An example of at the end of the day, what to do with your bay
Yeah. Yeah, it's
in order
awesome.
to be ready to start for the next day. This was a way of screening people, right? One, they had to be to work on time. Two, they had to be
Mm-hmm.
able to, wash your car as per our standard practice, wheel wells, door jambs, you name it. But they also knew by this document how they needed to leave their workplace, right? Within a month or less, we could tell real quick if we had somebody that was able to move forward to the next stage. Here's what's cool. You move forward to the next stage, guess what your other job is? When you're ready to graduate to the next level, which let's say it's a light prep, what do you think the responsibility you have would be in graduating yourself?
Good question. Making sure this gets done,
You
probably.
train your replacement
Yeah,
because your
100%.
replacement is your reason for moving forward. And I got it. We went through a lot of people. We'd go through 10 to get to 2. But of those 2 that got it, they kept bringing on that new person and saying, look, the only way I'm going to move up is to make sure you're successful. And it
Mm-hmm.
worked. It worked. Was there setbacks? Did people quit, not show up to work? Absolutely. But we had a workforce that was excited to keep moving forward. So, which brings me to one really cool
Really like that.
question. Joel, for a while, you were pretty frustrated. You were trying to find somebody for your front office in towing. Remember that story?
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah, and I was pushing you hard. We had the role laid out. I'm like, Joel, you need an administration person, man. What's going on? And you're like, Lenny, I can't find anybody. I think were your words. So
Hmm. Yeah,
I'll
something
let
like
you be
that.
a victim. Let you be a victim for a little while. But what happened the next day? How'd you get past that? I love this.
So you're talking about when when I got my new one here, the one that I have now,
I'm talking about I'm talking actually about the original one
the
when
original one.
you originally designed an admin role, but you couldn't find anyone to even
Yeah.
apply.
Well, of course, it was in our towing division. So we deal with some mostly upset people. So we have this story that we need to have a man so that they can be safe and secure and handle themselves if any situations ever arise. That isn't necessarily the truth because you can control those situations with proper procedure and safety and all of that. But yeah, I was having a real tough time just getting any resumes, and the resumes that we were getting were, I don't know, just nothing made me excited about the skill set. But ended up having somebody who was in the military or looking to get into the military, and they figured that they could do this job, and ended up hiring her. Classic younger generation. We got purple hair, we got tattoos, we got piercings. Doesn't bother me, bothers some people. But yeah, no, we ended up hiring her, and my God, did my life get super easy. She wanted to work. She was a go-getter. She loved cars. She loved going outside.
That's awesome.
My so I'd like to
Dick
share my version
twisted
of that
love,
story.
hey?
Share my version of that story because I was there. picked up Joel after a long day. He was super frustrated. We
Yeah.
had a good chat over a beer that night, and then we went for breakfast the next morning. And as we're having breakfast, we're still chatting about how it's hard to find people. There's not really anyone good applying. I'm watching this waitress kind of run around the restaurant helping, all of us get our food and coffee and whatnot. And she walks up to the table and we start chatting. Me and Joel, pretty chatty bunch. Say, how you doing? How long you been here? Her comment was, I'm here. I love what I do. It's all about people, but this isn't my thing, right? I'm just waiting to get into either the local base, Air Force Base, they're up in Cold Lake, or I want to go into the police academy program. And we're like, really? So what is it about, the Army base or the police academy that intrigues you? She goes, I just love helping people solve problems. So I get already feel Joel's eyes burning on me because he looks to her and goes, have you ever thought about working in an environment such as towing? She goes, you were really familiar. You look really familiar. You helped me once on my vehicle and you stayed late and got me out. And she started asking questions. Anyways, he invited her to come by and see what they had going on. And that was the girl he hired.
Is this a true story or what? Or did you just make this up?
No, that's
I
true.
wish I could.
That's 100% true.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
It
was very cool. And it was not about stealing somebody from your local diner. Okay.
That's not the
No.
moral of the story.
No.
Thanks for
Right.
I
that.
could see this podcast going for
Like,
lunch tomorrow.
local
Yeah.
I'm
diner
going to
people.
Cactus Club. All right, here we go. Yeah.
The fact is that the people you want to look for in hiring are all around you and are just as hungry as you are to find something that fits. And all it took was with Joel asking her a few questions, her seeing that, yeah, working in the job she already had alluded to wasn't really for her. And then him helping her relate to working at a towing desk where people are not happy to see you. I mean, their car either just got impounded or it's been stolen and found. You have a great opportunity to work with people. Plus, by the way, we do dispatch, which totally got her going, right? He just helped her fit in the mindset of what she was looking for to get her. How long was she there before she finally moved on into the police academy, Joel?
That was just over a year. Yeah.
So he
And now
also helped her get to where she wanted to go because of his strict process training and implementation. So then he went ahead and found another person. He got the job done. And I think you guys all heard him say my life was easy. So
I swear I heard that. I might when things get tough, I want to replay this clip if you don't mind.
Yep.
Well, thank you for that. Once in a while we get lucky and we do the right things over and over.
He is true.
Anyways, moral stories, people are out there. They are looking just as much as you are. Questions you're asking might be something to consider changing. And do know that if you indeed have a relatively intentional way of screening people into your industry, that's okay too. It might be a little tiring at times, but don't put up big blockers. I'm trying to find that next silver bullet. I'm going to tell you what, you have good people. They're right there with you. There's a lot of people out there to be chosen from. So but I want to know, because I know each of you have done it, what are some steps somebody can take to building that all-star team that you guys all, I can say you have, or at times have had and continue to work at having? How do you do that and remain profitable?
And remain profitable. I think the first steps don't have anything to do with profit. I think they just have to do with maybe just sitting down and understanding your own values and your company values, and then figuring out, through conversation with your team, how closely aligned they are to your values. And I think it just simply just starts there. Like, where are we going? Are we going there together? Are we, and you're going to come across people that don't align with your values in your organization, and you got to figure out how to move forward with that. Are they gonna buy into your purpose, the company's purpose? Well, I don't think you need to disrupt the world to get going in the right direction.
Yeah, very, very well said. I totally agree. Um, I think to add to that, I think the understanding that it's not going to be an overnight thing either.
Mm-mm.
We've said it multiple times, no silver bullet. And I'm not sure. I think the saying goes, the best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago, and the second best time is today.
today.
That is 100% what it's like with technicians and building a team and culture, because
Yeah.
you're going to put these pieces together piece by piece, and there's going to be some people, to Todd's point, that come and go, but it's necessary to work through that. You can't skip that
Mhm.
part. You're never going to skip that
Mhm.
part. So if you want to really settle down for that journey, and that's where I invite, young entrepreneurs and people who are just getting into business. I think if you can have that mindset right from the get-go, I think you will be more successful. The longer it takes you to come to that realization,
Mhm.
the harder time you're going to have. Not to pump up Todd's tires too much, but he's right. It's not, profit is not the goal. Profit is the outcome. It's the byproduct of
Mhm.
good culture and good team. And I'm not saying you can totally, be in the ditch with your business and be reckless, when you're trying to put a team together, but you cannot focus. If you're too focused on profit, you're not going to be able to
No.
take those chances, and put a good team together if your sole focus is profit.
Well said.
Yeah.
And I think for myself, I would just add that over the years, I've worked with Lenny quite a bit, and we talk about values, and then of course we always talk about trust. And trust is
Mhm.
something that is a continuous circle of questioning and values and working together. It's never like you achieve this level of trust with somebody and it's there. No, it goes up and down as we go through things. And I think as culture in any industry has become this per word and this ever elusive thing that every company is chasing to have this just amazing culture. I think we all just need to step back and realize that it's just like trust needs to be continually worked on, revisited, evaluated, and it's never going to be where you want it. You'll get real close. And I think that is the win in itself, is getting closer to your goal of culture, because it's not this achievable line that you cross and say, all right, we've got the culture.
Yeah, there's no finish line.
There's no finish line. It's just a continuous opportunity to get better at what we do and to share with our staff and our people, and just grow and move on.
Awesome.
That would be my viewpoint on culture.
Good stuff. The outcome of this podcast started from all of us agreeing that we need to create a place for shop owners to talk. Let's just get them talking. It doesn't mean other people that are related to this trade or even other trades or industries couldn't participate. Please do. But gentlemen, what can we do, I guess starting with us four, to create better resources, better avenues for other shop owners to get some help? We've all done it. I know all of you are on here using up your spare time to share this knowledge. We know why, because you care about the industry and you care about your fellow shop owners. What can we do to band together? How do we make this stuff more known beyond this podcast? Any ideas?
I think this is a place to start. And I think that shop owners need to just start asking questions. Stop keeping to themselves, get involved with working groups or with even hooking up with you and Ryan, Lenny, or just like start building your connections. And because we learn as we go. And I think when you are in a community of like-minded people who really want to do great things and don't know how to do it, ideas just generate just from that environment.
So what I heard you say is stay connected. Stay connected with us.
Or get connected.
Yeah.
Like,
Get connected, yeah.
Yeah, that
right? Stop being on your own little island. Get out there. It's not
If you're the
easy to do,
smartest
but
person in the room, you're in the wrong room.
yeah,
Right?
100%.
Yeah, that's very well said. I mean, on this podcast, we all share things that are working for us, and these are things that have evolved over time, and these are things that well, at least I'll speak for myself. I'm not saying I have it figured out, but during my, throughout this journey and talking and trying new things and hearing what other shop owners are doing to solve a similar problem that I had, trying to bring that back to my business and seeing if it fits. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't, but it doesn't matter. The point is having those connections and being able to have those conversations, whether that's through a performance group, just even a small group within your collision repair community, provincial, interprovincial, whatever that looks like to you. just do it. Just have that conversation. If you're sitting here listening to this and you have no other shop owner that you can talk to on a regular basis
Yeah.
about your problems, that's where you need to start.
You, you need to get
Get
connected.
connected.
Yeah, 100% with somebody.
Yeah. Preferably somebody good, but just let's start with somebody.
Yeah, I'll start with anybody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Someone who's going to challenge you.
Right.
I think that anybody that's willing to connect with another shop owner is probably someone who wants to go in the same direction. Like, I think that shop owners that want nothing to do with the industry aren't the shop owners you're going to connect with anyways. They just kind of do.
And we are happy to play matchmaker.
Yeah. Yeah, I bet you are.
In summary, communication. Norm, you said the difficult or the complicated conversations, I think, are leading to you advocating that they might be uncomfortable, but have the conversation. Get rid of the generational trauma. That was a big one, Joel. Thanks for that. Like the stuff you're carrying, the stories you're telling, although they feel good and they let you play victim, they're not true. And even if you're right, whoopee, right? Make a move.
Yeah.
Work with who you currently have versus trying to find that next silver bullet.
Yeah.
I don't know about you guys, but I've never found the silver bullet in all the years I've been doing this. And even the
Not
ones that
since I
really
left.
seemed like the next biggest massive solution. I mean, we got lucky once in a while, but that wasn't because of their skill. They were skilled. It's because they were sick of the runaround in the industry. They wanted quality of life, and that's what we carried. That's the only time I saw somebody. It's like, we're the place for you. Okay. If you're not finding good people, look in a different barrel. Okay. Love it. Plant the tree today. Good one. Oh, wise young Norm there. Plant the tree today. And Joel finished off with a strong culture relies on trust and embracing each other's values.
Very well done.
Great stuff, guys. Stoked that we got to finish off part 2 of episode 3. It's so hard to find good people. The content to come, just so you guys know, is the next podcast we're doing is the autopsy of a car repair.
Boy, this is going to be a good one.
And I gave you guys a taster last podcast of the infinity that I showed.
Mm-hmm.
Ryan might even splash a little teaser, a little short out there on some of our reaction, but it goes way deeper than what you guys saw.
Nice.
So the next one is going to undress the industry. There is something fundamentally wrong out there.
Yeah.
And it starts at the ownership level, the environment we've created as shop owners that some of us have learned from the right way and gotten out of. There's still not a lot of people out there learning. So I'm super stoked to do that. There are going to be a degree of tough moments, if I could call it. Let me rephrase that. Uncomfortable moments as we dissect that car repair. So I'm going to just spend some time giving you guys one kudos for breaking the mold and taking things like investing in your people, quality control systems, all of those, they have merit. So anyone out there, you guys included, that are doing these things, they matter, because what you're going to see is something that probably at one point was in place, didn't get followed, or even if it is in place, is not being followed. So that, and I guess for you three, is as we prep into the next podcast, we all got to the level we're at by learning. And so I just want to ask each of you to kind of ponder on what has the time you've spent in the trades been like, and how have you learned? So what have you learned? So, okay.
Cool.
I like that.
Right on, gentlemen.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you so much for your time and for your trust.
Yeah. No,
Thank you, team.
This was a good one.